Separation is an illusion. Science actually discovered long ago that everything is connected, absolutely everything, and yet few understand how this works and how they can practically use this information to transform their lives. And this isn't just something that's understood now scientifically. This is something that ancient cultures, ancient civilizations, and ancient peoples knew very prominently, and it's why they had so much more success in using universal principles and laws, because they understood these concepts and these ideas. They knew that everything was connected. And you can look at so many ancient beliefs, cultures, and religions that understood this and tell it through their stories and their analogies and so much more. And science now confirms that there is a hidden energy field or information field that transcends time and space. From it comes everything, and everything is connected to it. And there are ways in which you can powerfully connect to this field, resonate with different frequencies that are contained within it, which every frequency exists within it, by the way, and as a result, have complete transformations in your life. And that's what this video is all about, showing you how to actually do this and begin this process. You see, your mind, thoughts, emotions are influencing your reality in ways you may have never imagined. But when you understand this, you can begin to shape your life and your destiny. And again, if you pay attention to this video, just give it your full attention and actually utilize what we go over here, this could be one of the most powerful videos you ever watch, because it could be the catalyst for change and transformation in your life. Now, from a scientific perspective, over 100 years ago, I believe they started doing experiments on something known as quantum entanglement, which I believe was coined by Max Planck, he's basically known as the father of quantum mechanics. And what they've done, and they've done this many times now, is they separated at great distance particles that had interacted with each other in some way, and then they would see and observe what happened to the other if they stimulated one, even though they were separated by vast distances. And what they discovered absolutely blew them away, because when they stimulated one or created an effect in one particle miles away from the other one it was entangled with, instantaneously the same thing would happen in the other one that was going on with the first. Again, there was no time delay. It happened instantaneously. It transcended time and space. It showed that entangled particles remained connected even when separated by vast distances in time and space. And so if everything in the universe is made up of energy, as we all know, if you are made up of these same subatomic particles, what does this imply when it comes to your life and the influence you could have over it? What this means is if we can activate certain things within ourselves, we can draw different outcomes into our lives dependent on what we are activating. You see, everything exists within the universe, but what are we activating within ourselves? And through that, what also becomes activated through quantum entanglement. At the highest level, you are entangled with everything, connected to it all. If we are all coming, say, from one primordial explosion that happened billions or even longer ago, that gave birth to what we call matter, this being known as the Big Bang, then it is all entangled. We all at one point were entangled, and one big massive energy, or whatever you want to call it, that then exploded outwards and gave birth to what we now call matter. But it means that everything is technically entangled. Now, if that's the case, it then comes down to what we choose to activate within our lives. What we activate is what will then be drawn to us. Since we are entangled with it all, you can draw to you things like fear as much as you can love, happiness, abundance, and so on. It isn't about you're going to get one or the other no matter what. It's about what are you activating, which will then correspond with those things on the same frequency out there in the information field. If you're entangled with everything, it's not about creating certain things in your life. It's about choosing what you would like to bring more of into your life through what you activate within you. The particles, the entanglement within you then will activate in the things in the information field around you. Now the question is, that sounds great. How do you do this? Well, that's what this video is going to show you exactly how to do, how to start activating certain things within you, activate your own power that you may not even know that you had, so that you can start influencing your life and get real results in your life, regardless of what that is that you want for yourself. So let's jump into it. Again, I would recommend taking some notes here, really paying attention to this, because as you pay attention to this, you're also activating those things we're talking about, which starts drawing the results you want more into your life. So let's jump into it. So like I said in the intro, everything exists and everything is connected to some degree or another if we chunk up high enough. Again, we're all made of the same stuff. Everything you see around you at its core level is not different. It expresses itself differently in an outward way, but we're made up of the same stuff that makes up your kitchen table, that makes up this camera, that makes up the person that you can see around you or think about. Everyone is made up from that same stuff that is coming from the exact same place, meaning at the highest level, everything is entangled. And an important concept because of this is to understand that what you connect to and what you're dwelling on in what we could call your inner world is what leads to changes in your outer world. And I'll explain what I mean by this. You see, you are not just a physical being. Like I said, you're made up of all of the stuff that makes up everything else and kind of has this appearance of this physical expression. But it is something that is being physically expressed. What is that other thing? And this is where the inner world comes in. You see, there's this physical part of yourself. You guys understand that. You don't need to buy into that. You've experienced it pretty much every moment of your life up until this point. But there's also an inner part of yourself that we could call the mental and spiritual part of yourself. And all three of these together kind of make up the accumulation of what you are. Now, the mental part of yourself is simple to understand. It's your thoughts, it's your visualizations, it's anything to do with those mental faculties. It's not a physical thing. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it in that way, but it does exist. You do have thoughts, you do have that imaging that you either bring in through your own intention or you notice it's coming in, right? Sometimes from somewhere outside of yourself, but it's coming into your mind. And then we have the spiritual part of ourselves. And this spiritual part in particular is important because it is that connection to all that is. It is that connection to something higher. It is that connection to everything. It is also the emotional self, the energy in motion, the energetic part of yourself, right? And so you have these two inner parts of yourself and also this thing that we call physical, but again, all of it is made up of the same stuff, just at different rates of vibration. Again, physical stuff is the same as the non-physical stuff, it's just at a different rate of vibration, which gives it the appearance of being physical. If you were to raise the vibration of something physical to a certain degree, it would once again become non-physical or cease to be physical. Again, if you looked at anything physical under the right scientific instruments, you would find at their core that they are energy in empty space. It's not as physical as we believe it to be. And again, if you were to extend or expand its rate of vibration, it would cease to be what we call physical, yet again, it would still be energy. It would still be what everything is at its core. Now, one thing to keep in mind, like I mentioned, is that the outer world, what we call the physical, follows what you're doing in this inner world. Because what you do in the inner world is what's called the cause to the effects, which is the outer world. Meaning, if you're dwelling in certain things in the mental world and also the spiritual world, you're going to get the corresponding effects. Think about it. If you're activating something in the mental and spiritual, it is going to activate the same in your physical. In the same way, if you separate those particles, you activate one and another, you get an instantaneous reaction in the other one, right? And so what you dwell upon in the inner world will lead to the results you're going to experience in the outer world. You will never find someone who leads an incredibly beautiful inner world existence, meaning they're calm, they're peaceful, they feel abundance, they think good thoughts, they feel good emotions, and then has a terrible physical life. You're not going to find this person. In the same way, you are not going to find a person who has a terrible inner world, they think negatively, they feel negatively, and then has an amazing physical world. This does not adhere to certain laws in the universe, and therefore will never happen. There is a cause to every effect, or an effect for every cause. And so what you do in the inner world is going to determine what energy you bring into your life that will eventually manifest physically. Again, the physical takes a little bit longer because it is a different rate of vibration, a more dense rate of vibration. So if we were to look at it at a pole and we had energy or spirit at one end and matter at the other, lower down on the pole is where the physical stuff is. And it is a denser rate of vibration, just meaning it will take longer to show up. It takes more energy, it takes more concentrated particle flow, we could call it, in a particular direction to show up in our lives. How do we activate that concentrated particle flow? Well, it's the thoughts we're thinking, the imaging that we're entertaining. It's the how connected in the spiritual are we? What emotions are we entertaining? The accumulation of that is what's going to make up your physical world. There's actually a predominant law of the universe known as the law of balance and harmony. And this is a crucial law to understand because it plays on what we just talked about. And what it essentially states is where you dwell in the inner world will lead to the results that you get in the outer world. Again, in a nutshell, if we were to make it as simple as possible, the law of balance and harmony states that the outer world follows the inner. And so whatever you're doing in the inner world will be reflected in your outer. And again, you can all think of an example of someone who you know has a terrible inner world, they're complaining all the time, all of this different stuff, and lo and behold, there's always drama in their physical world, there's always more problems. Maybe one problem gets solved and then it's just replaced with two more. Yes, because the law of balance is balancing out their outer world to match the inner. And so the way the law of balance works is if you have a certain calibration in the inner world, the outer world will always over time balance to maintain balance in the outer. Meaning, let's say you're out of balance in your physical because of a certain inner world state. Over time, if that inner world state is maintained, balance will be determined in the outer world. It will match what is going on in the inner. Now, hearing that, you may actually be able to deduce what is the solution if I want changes in my life. Well, the law of balance is amazing and can be amazing for you. Because what it means is it doesn't matter what's going on in your physical circumstances. You can rebalance your physical circumstances to match a new inner world if you stay calibrated in it long enough. Meaning, if you entertain now new, different thoughts that are more of a positive nature, you entertain now new emotions and keep that connection to something larger, that bigger thing, again, that thing that we're all entangled with, right? And you stay at that higher rate of vibration more often, the law of balance is then going to have to balance or rebalance things in the outer world. And so one of our jobs actually is to get out of balance. Because if you have a physical life you don't enjoy, let's say you don't have the money you want, you don't have the relationships you want, or whatever else, well, then what you need to ultimately do is change your inner world first, because the outer follows the inner. And by changing the inner world, you're now out of balance. So let's say your physical world here is here and your inner world is here, and they're leveled up, right? They're matching up. Well, if your inner world suddenly goes up here and you stay up here, there's only two ways for balance to be maintained. And again, the law of balance and harmony is always looking to maintain balance. So if the physical world is here and you're now up here, there's only two ways for things to balance. The first way is what happens to most people, and you may even recognize this pattern in yourself. They learn this stuff, they start feeling a little better, they go up here, but then something happens and they come back down. And then the law of balance goes, oh, okay, well, they're balanced again. Balance has been maintained. However, if you have the courage to stay here, to keep thinking in a positive, better thought way, to keep your emotions high and get back on the horse when you're not feeling so great and just stay in this place, there's only one other way the physical can balance to maintain balance and harmony, and that is it has to come up. It takes a little bit longer because, again, the physical takes a little bit longer to show up because it's a denser rate of vibration. But if you stay up here and dwell in the higher levels of consciousness, the higher realms of thought, then this will have to come up to meet it. And there's only, again, there's only those two ways. Either you come down or the physical circumstances come up to meet you. And when people get quantum leaps in their life and quantum change and they have crazy transformations, this is always the process that's happening. I've seen it happen so many times with my clients and in myself, where it's one situation down here and they stay here and we help them do it, and they keep staying here and they keep staying here even when the storm shows up and it looks like everything's going crazy. They ride that storm, they embrace it, they stay. Even when their circumstances seem to be kicking up a storm, they still maintain this place, the inner world, the mental and the spiritual, and it always happens. Whoop, this comes up, and all of these amazing positive changes start to come out of left field. An amazing quote that I always keep in mind, I tell my clients, I'm going to tell you, and I've said in these videos before because it's so impactful if utilized, is to have more faith in your vision, which is, again, keeping yourself high in the mental and spiritual realm, having faith in that, looking at that, having more faith in your vision than the current physical circumstances. Because if you look at your current physical circumstances and you feel bad and you complain about them, what does that do to your inner world, to your mental and spiritual? Well, suddenly now you're feeling bad. Suddenly now you're thinking poorly. Suddenly now you're just entertaining the same stuff that gave you the situation in the first place. Balance has been maintained. But if you think higher now, you feel higher most of the time, and don't think you have to do this 100%. Just doing this more and you're doing it now will have effects, and you just work on getting better at it. Just by doing this 51% of the time will change your life. It absolutely will. Most people are doing it 2% of the time, if that, thinking better thoughts or feeling better, putting themselves in a higher state. But if you do it just a little bit more and then a little bit more and a little bit more, you're going to start noticing things changing, because balance and harmony has to be maintained, and it will come up here to be maintained. I've seen this happen way too many times to not know it to be true. It's happened for every single person I've taken through this process. It's happened for myself. It's a law of the universe, one of the predominant laws, again, the predominant law, the law of balance and harmony. So I'm now going to give you a metaphor that is going to help you give you some insight into how you can start ignoring the current physical circumstances. Because you might go, well, that's simple to say, but how do I, when the bills are here, how do I, not get sucked into that? When that person I don't like is here, how do I not get sucked into that, et cetera, et cetera? Well, I want to give you something called the art gallery metaphor. Again, the secret here is to give more faith to the vision than the current physical circumstances. If you do that, things will absolutely change. They just will. Again, you are utilizing certain principles and laws. Again, if there are certain equivalent physical circumstances that come correspondingly with certain emotions and certain thoughts, again, they're entangled and it will eventually come in the physical if you stay there long enough. Then by giving that more of your attention, it has to, by law, come in. And so this is where the art gallery metaphor comes in. You see, most people, you can imagine your life is like this art gallery, right? And most people are in the art gallery of their life and they do not like the paintings on the wall. They hate it. There's statues, there's paintings, there's all this artwork, and they absolutely loathe it. Well, you have no right to go up to anything in the art gallery and start destroying it, or go up to the art curator and be like, hey, I don't like this, take it away. They're just going to ignore you. They're just gonna be like, well, that's what's in this room. You have no right to come in here and tell us what to take away or remove. And if you do start trying to destroy the artwork, you're just gonna find more problems. You're just gonna find you're kicked out and into even worse art gallery room. You're probably now being locked up in the broom closet of the art gallery or whatever. And that's gonna be a pretty dreary room to be in for a long time, isn't it? So ultimately, you're in this art gallery room and most people are complaining at the artwork. Now, one quote I learned from a mentor of mine, I always remind myself of this if I ever get a little victim-y, is that complaining about your current circumstances is the glue that keeps you stuck to them. In fact, it's not just the glue that keeps you stuck to them. Complaining about your current circumstances is what expands your current circumstances. So as you start complaining about the artwork, you might notice that the artwork starts to get a little bit bigger. It's starting to get a little more prominent in the room. You might notice that now a similar artwork has now manifested in the same room, right next to the one you were complaining about. And isn't it funny? You start complaining maybe about someone in your life, and another person to complain about starts popping up in your life. So complaining about your current physical circumstances, your current circumstances in your life, is the glue that keeps you stuck to them and also creates more of them. So what is the solution? Again, this is where we have more faith in the vision, because you do not have any right to alter the art or tell anyone what needs to be there. However, you have every right, all the ability, to leave the room you're currently complaining about and go to a different room in the art gallery, one that you actually enjoy. You have every right, again, to take your attention off the artwork you're moaning about and go put your attention on different artwork. Again, in the inner world, you can do this. You can visualize about how you want things to eventually be in your physical. You can think about what it is you actually want, not what you don't want, which is what created what you don't want. You can feel gratitude and appreciation and peace and joy. You think you need things to feel these things? Absolutely not. You can feel any of these things at this very moment. You can think of the things you want at this very moment. You just choose not to, because most of us have been trained not to. We've been trained to complain. We've been trained to do all this different stuff. But if I told you to, for example, think about something you love, you could probably do it instantaneously and start feeling pretty good. If I asked you to think about a happy childhood memory, you could tune into that quite easily, right? So you definitely have the access to this energy and these emotions. If I told you to think of an orange, and now I want you to slice up that orange into little quarters, now I want you to visualize putting the orange in your mouth. Can you visualize that whole process and think about that whole thing and even experience those thoughts? Who got a taste of orange when they brought the orange to their mouth? You probably did. Because those visualizations, what you think is powerful. The feelings you entertain is powerful. And so instead of complaining about the artwork in the room you don't like, go into a different room. So keep this in mind. Another one from my mentor, it's so powerful. Choose, don't change. Don't try and change the things in your life. Choose differently. How do you choose differently? You start changing what you're doing in the inner world. I know I used the words change there, but you're choosing to do things differently in the inner world. You're choosing new thoughts. You're choosing new emotions to entertain. You're choosing new ways in which to calibrate the inner. And remember, the outer world follows the inner world. You can also think of it like this, like there's an infinite buffet of things that you get to choose from. And most people in the buffet are eating something they don't like, complaining about what they don't like, when there are tons of other things they could be choosing from. So they're eating this thing, they're like, I don't like this is disgusting, this is terrible, as they're eating it, and they're like, yum, yum, it's disgusting. Hey, chef who made this particular thing, make something else, but the chef's job is to make that particular thing. And you're like, okay, fine, and you're eating all this stuff, thinking it's the only thing available, when there's literally infinite options. And you could very easily just put the fork or spoon down, move a few rows up, and go try something different. But what most people do is they just keep eating it, they keep complaining about it, and then more of it starts showing up because you're eating it. So the chef keeps bringing more of it out. You could step away and simply choose something differently. You can't change that that's an option and that's something that's available, which is what a lot of people want to do. They're like, get rid of this, I don't want to see this ever, this shouldn't exist. Everything has a right to exist. And so stop trying to make something not exist in your life and instead choose something different to come in, right? Instead of trying to get rid of the meal and telling the chef stop making it, well, stop eating it and it will stop existing in your life. Go choose something different. So if we connect and stay connected to certain parts of the infinite information field, this intelligence, this non-physical part of ourselves, we will receive in our lives those things in physical form. We will receive, again, whatever those things are entangled with, and it's going to be the equivalent in physical form. It just takes concentrated particle flow. In fact, if you want to know something very cool, there's actually a term for this known as the quantum to Newtonian transition point. Now, quantum, you can just think of inner world or energetic or, the energy world. Newtonian is the physical world, right? So we're talking quantum, inner, that inner we just talked about, mental and spirit. Newtonian, physical. The quantum to Newtonian transition point, meaning where is the point where the quantum starts coming into the physical? So the inner starts coming into the outer. At what point? And the quantum to Newtonian transition point states that it takes 6 to 8 weeks of concentrated particle flow to start seeing dramatic changes in your physical world. That means 6 to 8 weeks of going into the art gallery room that you actually want in your life will lead to dramatic changes in your physical life, where there are these things and now they're starting to physicalize. Or 6 to 8 weeks of choosing only what you want in the buffet rather than focusing on the things you don't want or you don't like will lead to dramatic changes in your physical life. This is the law of balance, again, now balancing up to that new place that you're in. 6 to 8 weeks. And I don't know about you, but 6 to 8 weeks to have dramatic changes is not a lot of time. It really isn't. And again, the thing is, it's saying dramatic changes. We take people through this in our program, and we see people having results in weeks because we're really helping them with this concentrated particle flow. We're helping them have accountability. We're really keeping them in the work. So it happens very, very quickly. And so things will already start to change when you're doing this right. But when you do this properly for 6 to 8 weeks, I mean, you could be living in a completely new reality for yourself. That's how powerful this is. In fact, Napoleon Hill is even stated when it comes to this principle that it operates so quickly when he tried this, basically through what's called a definite chief aim and having a sweet spot. When he tried this, it operated so quickly and created such change in his life that it actually frightened him. It frightened him how quickly this can take effect. And it can be exactly the same for you if you learn this, you honor this, and you keep that concentrated particle flow where you actually want it to be. Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to give you some more ways in which you can do this, because you now may understand it a little bit more. You have the metaphor, and you kind of have probably a decent idea of how you can start doing this. But let's go over some very particular things you can do to up-level your concentrated particle flow so it's in the direction you want in your inner world, which will then lead to the results you're looking for in your physical. So remember, you get what you think about and feel about most of the time. Why? Law of balance, cause and effect. The outer world follows the inner. So what you're thinking about and what you're feeling about, again, is what you're doing on the mental and the spiritual side of yourself, which leads to the effects that you're going to experience in the physical, which are going to be the equivalent of whatever you've been doing in the mental and the spiritual, right? So it's very, very important to keep in mind that you get what you think about most of the time. Earl Nightingale said this in The Strangest Secret. And again, I always add in feel about because that's important too. You do need the feeling. You do need that energy. The feeling is the energy. right? So you need both. But what you're feeling and what you're thinking about, and these are in correspondence, by the way. If you start feeling better thoughts, you'll notice you'll start feeling, or start thinking better thoughts, I should say, you'll start feeling higher emotions, and vice versa. You start feeling higher emotions, you start feeling love and calm and peace, you're gonna notice your thoughts are better, because there's correspondence. The principle of correspondence from Hermetic wisdom, meaning as above, so below. You do one on one plane, you'll notice a corresponding effect on another. This is why, for example, if your body feels like crap and on the physical plane you're not feeling so great, you notice how your thoughts are usually not so great either, your emotions aren't so great either, but when your body feels really good, your thoughts are usually better, your feelings are a little better, or we can go the other way, when you start thinking better, you start, maybe putting your shoulders back, you're like, yeah, you start egging yourself up and maybe a little bit, kind of encouraging yourself, you start thinking better, now you're feeling better, and now your posture's better, your physical is actually following it too. Right? So it is crucial to understand this, that you get what you think and you feel about most of the time. So what are some really cool things that we can do to especially influence your subconscious, which I intentionally put in the title here, because your subconscious mind is how you're going to be operating from most of the time. It's kind of like the thing in the background that's trying to conserve energy, so it doesn't, bring all of this stuff into your conscious mind. It's your habits and all these other things down there. So how do we start creating new habits in the subconscious that allow you to think and feel about things better automatically, so you don't have to always do it consciously? So I'm going to give you one of the biggest and most impactful ones that I've mentioned a lot. And again, we really work with this with our clients. We expose them to certain things and we give them certain things to watch and read and do, because this is a big one. Again, you are always in process. You're always sending this stuff out. You're always thinking something, feeling something. And so by having things in our environment that help us to tune in to better thoughts and better feelings is hugely advantageous. And this is where your mental and energetic diet come in. You see, we also consume things not just in food and water and drink and everything. We consume things energetically. We're consuming energy. We're absorbing information and data and energy all of the time, and that information, data, and energy is influencing us. So if you have a terrible mental diet, if you have a terrible information diet, if you have a terrible energetic diet, well, in the same way that if you ate terrible food, never worked out, didn't take care of your health, you're going to put on weight, you're going to get disease, dis-ease, the same thing's going to happen to you spiritually. You're going to get diseased spiritually, diseased mentally, rather than thriving in these areas. And so the first thing to look at is, what are the influences you're engaging with, and how are those things influencing you? For example, are you scrolling social media like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all this, kind of like just a drone going like this and absorbing all of this kind of sketchy or subpar or lower conscious energy? Right? This drama, this fear, this guilt and shame, or whatever else it is. Guess what? That is not inconsequential. That is like you consuming junk food for the mental and spiritual realm, right? Are you watching TV shows and movies that are calibrated at fear and violence and drama and et cetera, et cetera? Again, mental and spiritual junk food, and there's going to be a corresponding effect from that. There is going to be an effect from that. It's not inconsequential. In fact, it's highly consequential. And so one of the things we do is we help people really get their mental and information diet under control, right? So you can simply just kind of take stock of what you're doing. What are you watching? What are you consuming informationally, energetically, and start being more intentional with this process. Why this is so important is because, again, your subconscious is picking up on everything you don't think it's picking up on. It's absorbing everything around you. The things that you can't put your conscious attention on, it's still absorbing those things. That's why a lot of people will give the advice of playing certain things while you sleep, like affirmations, because even though you consciously can't hear it, your subconscious can, and it will melt and kind of absorb into the subconscious and therefore influence you even though you're sleeping, even though you can't consciously process what's going on. Your subconscious still is. And so what you're watching, especially social media, what you're consuming in this way is absolutely influencing you and has consequences. So the first thing is recognizing what are things that are not benefiting me or helping me move closer to what I want in my life? What are things that are not helping me experience more of the art gallery room I want to experience, or the things in the buffet I want to eat? Determine what those things are, and then start removing them. Again, you can do this quickly, you can do this slowly if you want to phase something out. For example, if you identify a person, maybe you want to just try a little bit less time with that person and see how it goes, right? But if it's like a TV show, you're watching the news all the time, you're on YouTube Shorts 3 hours a day, you're on TikTok 3 hours a day, I'm telling you right now, these are things that are preventing you from getting to your dreams. These are things that are preventing you from living the life you want to live. And so you have a choice to make. And again, you can make whichever choice. It's not right or wrong, but understand that each choice has consequences, and these laws are absolute. It's not going to let you do these things and then also have these other things that you need to do different things to get, right? And so identify where those time, energy sucking activities are and start releasing them. Now, we can also use this stuff to our benefit. What are things you can consume that actually move you into the art gallery room you want to be in? Start introducing more of that. Again, simple things is content. You can watch stuff like this, for example. In our course that we have with clients, we have coaching calls and we have a community and everything so that they can be exposed to this stuff like every day. We have specific videos they watch and things we've created for them so that their information diet and mental diet, they're always consuming something that is helping them with this, helping them calibrate that inner world at a high place so these results start coming in. But you can figure out what's good to watch, what's not good to watch. Again, where is the energy of it calibrated? And just start removing the things that are harming you and start adding things that help you. This is going to help you to start thinking about the things you do want and to stop thinking about the things that you don't want. Because remember, you get what you think and feel about most of the time. Thinking about what you don't want? Congratulations, you're gonna have more of what you don't want. Screaming at the artwork in the gallery you don't want? Congratulations, it's now getting bigger, and there's another one that's similar to it right next to it, starting to form and materialize. You get what you think about most of the time, so train yourself to think about what you do want. Cut yourself off from the drama when you start thinking about what you don't want. Snap yourself out of it. The subconscious pattern. The more you wake up from that, the more you will dissolve this pattern in the subconscious. And the more you expose yourself to new things that up-level your emotions and thinking, the more these other patterns will start to die out. You can think of it like weeds in the garden. If you allow the weeds to get sunlight and you don't start removing them, you don't start replacing them, they grow bigger and bigger and bigger and strangle out what you're trying to grow. But if you stop giving them your attention, it's like you're cutting them off from water, cutting them off from the sunlight, and they will start to die out. And so the less you start engaging in those behaviors or watching the things that give these weeds energy, the less they'll be in your garden, the more they'll start to wither and die because their food source has been cut off. And so give your energy and attention to the things you want to grow, that's the food source, and take your energy and attention off the things you no longer want in your life, and they will start to wither and die. And I also want to give you a very powerful practice. This is kind of like a meditation visualization that we also give clients. It's so powerful. This is going to activate that inner world place amazingly. It's going to get you to be able to take quantum leaps on this journey. And we call this a passive active meditation. Now, instead of giving it to you here and making this video 2 hours long, which I'm sure you would appreciate it not being, I'm going to link you to this video here where I go over what this visualization is, how to do it, why it works, and how to set it up for yourself so that you're doing it correctly. This is a game changer. If you do this every single day, you will activate the law of balance so that those things are coming up to meet you and things in your life start to change.